They said justice was served. But justice doesn't silence ghosts.
Not today, not yet.
They buried my father. Then they tried to bury me with him. My fingerprints were on the weapon. My car was at the scene. But the plates? They weren't mine. The first time they called me a killer, it was at my own father's funeral. The word didn't come from the pulpit. It wasn't whispered behind a gloved hand. It came sharp and clean from somewhere behind the rows of folding chairs set up under the oak trees at Greenwood Cemetery. Ask her where she was. Heads turned, and just like that, grief shifted its aim. The sky above Redwood Falls was a pale, polished blue, the kind that belongs on postcards, the kind that doesn't care that your world has just ended. My name is Lila Bennett, and I did not kill my father. Redwood Falls sits 2 hours north of San Francisco, tucked between dry hills and stubborn vineyards. We have one high school, 3 wineries that pretend to be 5-star resorts, and a main street that smells like roasted coffee and old wood. People here lock their doors out of habit, not fear. They also remember everything. I grew up in the White House on Alder Street, the one with the sagging porch swing and wind chimes that never stopped singing. My father, Thomas Bennett, owned Bennett Construction. He built half the town: decks, barns, additions, dreams. He was also difficult, demanding, private, the kind of man who kept documents in locked filing cabinets and emotions in deeper ones. When he was found dead in his office 3 nights before the funeral, the town didn't know what to do with it. So they did what small towns do best. They found a story, and I fit. I had moved back to Redwood Falls 6 months earlier after a decade in Portland. My marriage had quietly unraveled. No dramatic betrayal, just distance widening into something unbridgeable. I came home because it was cheaper than starting over somewhere new. Dad and I were never close. We loved each other, I think, but our conversations were negotiations. He believed in hard lines. I believed in soft landings. We collided more than we connected. The night he died, we argued. That part is true. It was about the land on the south edge of town, 20 acres of dry field and scrub oak. A developer from Sacramento had made an offer. Dad wanted to sell. I didn't. Ask her where she was. They'll turn it into luxury condos, I said, standing in his office while the late sun cut through the blinds. You know that. It's my land, he replied evenly. I worked for it. And you don't care what it becomes? I care about keeping this business afloat. You think nostalgia pays payroll? I said something sharp. I don't even remember what. Something about legacy, about selling out. Voices rose. His secretary, Marlene, later told police she heard me say, "You'll regret this." By midnight, he was dead. Blunt force trauma, 1 strike to the back of the head. No sign of forced entry. The murder weapon? A framing hammer from his own desk drawer. My fingerprints were on it. Of course they were. I grew up in that office. I'd swung that hammer 100 times helping him on job sites. But nuance doesn't survive shock. Detective Aaron Doyle knocked on my door at 5:47 a.m. I remember the time because I hadn't slept. Grief is loud. It doesn't let you rest. "Ms. Bennett," he said gently, "we need you to come down to the station." At the station, beneath fluorescent lights that hummed like insects, he laid out the facts. The argument, the threat, the hammer, and something else. Security footage from the gas station across the street showed my car parked outside Bennett Construction at 10:38 p.m. "I left around 8, I said. "Your car says otherwise." I stared at the still image. It was my car, my plates, my dented rear bumper, but I wasn't in it. They arrested me by noon. The headline on the local news site read, "Builder's daughter charged in father's death." They used my high school yearbook photo. I looked innocent in it. Everyone does at 17. I made bail 3 days later. My mother, who had divorced Dad years ago and moved to Arizona, wired the money without asking questions. When I walked down Main Street that evening, conversations stalled. Eyes slid away. The barista at Juniper Cafe handed me my coffee without meeting my glance. Redwood Falls had decided. Estranged daughter, financial pressure, public argument. It was clean. Too clean. Here's the strange thing about being accused of something you didn't do. You start dissecting yourself. Was I angrier than I realized? Did I black out? Is there some hidden version of me capable of that kind of violence? The mind looks for gaps. I forced myself to focus on facts instead. Dad had been meeting with the developer, Grant Holloway, for weeks. Holloway was smooth, well-dressed, always smiling like he knew the ending before you did. He wanted that land badly. Dad had also recently fired his foreman, Rick Calder. Rick had worked for Bennett Construction for 15 years. Dad caught him falsifying supply invoices, small amounts at first, then larger ones. Rick didn't take it well, but suspicion isn't evidence. My court date loomed. The prosecutor painted me as resentful, unstable, recently divorced and financially strained. He emphasized the land dispute. Ms. Bennett stood to inherit everything, including 20 acres worth millions. That part was also true. What they didn't mention was that Dad had changed his will 2 weeks before he died. I found out by accident. Marlene called me one afternoon, voice trembling. "There's something you should see," she said. I met her at the office after hours. The office felt hollow without Dad's presence. His chair sat slightly askew, like he might return any minute. Marlene handed me a copy of the updated will. Dad had left the business to me, but the south parcel? It wasn't listed. Instead, there was a note referencing a pending transfer agreement. To be executed upon final approval, it read. Final approval from whom? I dug deeper. City council minutes are public record, so are zoning requests. 3 weeks before Dad's death, a zoning variance had been filed, not by Holloway, by Rick Calder. Rick had quietly partnered with Holloway to purchase the land after Dad sold it. Rick would oversee construction, Holloway would finance. Dad must have discovered it, discovered that his fired foreman was circling back, trying to profit from his own land. I took this to my attorney. He gives Rick motive, he said, but we need more than motive. We got it from an unexpected place, the gas station footage. My attorney subpoenaed the original file, not the still image shown in court. When we slowed it down, frame by frame, something stood out. The driver's side door opened at 10:41 p.m. The person who stepped out wasn't me. The footage was grainy, but the figure was broader, taller, and they walked with a slight limp. Rick Calder had a limp, a crushed ankle from a job site accident 10 years earlier. The prosecution argued the footage was inconclusive, but then Marlene remembered something else. Rick still had a key to the office. Dad had meant to collect it after firing him. He never did. Police obtained a warrant to search Rick's truck. In the bedliner, beneath layers of dust and sawdust, they found microscopic traces of Dad's blood. Rick claimed contamination, said he'd stopped by the office earlier that week, but cell phone data placed him near Bennett Construction at 10:32 p.m. the night of the murder, 10 minutes before my car arrived. Under pressure, Rick's story shifted. He admitted he'd confronted Dad that night, said he wanted closure, claimed the argument escalated, but he still denied killing him. The break came from something small, a receipt, found crumpled in Rick's truck console, from an auto parts store in Sacramento, for duplicate license plates, purchased 2 days before the murder. My license plate number clearly written on the order form. The courtroom went silent when that was presented. Rick stared straight ahead, jaw tight. The prosecutor's narrative unraveled in real time. Rick had followed me for weeks. He knew my schedule, knew my car. He duplicated my plates, parked across from the office, waited until the lights went out on Main Street. He confronted Dad about the land deal, about being cut out. Dad refused to reconsider. Rick grabbed the nearest weapon. One swing, then panic. He staged the scene to point to me, left the hammer where I'd easily have touched it before, swapped my plates back before dawn. He counted on the argument, on small-town memory, on the idea that strained daughters snap. When the jury returned, I didn't cry. I felt hollow. On the charge of first-degree murder, the foreman said, we find the defendant, Lila Bennett, not guilty. Not guilty. The words didn't erase the weeks of whispers. They didn't unprint headlines or unsee suspicion in familiar eyes. Rick was convicted 3 months later, second-degree murder, fraud, evidence tampering. Grant Holloway disappeared from
This
Redwood
land
Falls
isn't
before
for
his
sale.
own financial investigation
We've already
began.
secured the
The
permits.
south parcel remains
You were never the
untouched.
target.
Wild grass, dry
You were
wind,
the
open
distraction.
sky. Sometimes I stand at the edge of it and try to imagine what Dad intended, whether he was going to back out of the sale, whether we might have found common ground. Grief is complicated when layered over accusation. At the grocery store now, people meet my eyes again. Some apologize, some don't. Marlene still leaves fresh flowers at Dad's grave every Sunday. I go less often, not because I don't miss him, but because that cemetery holds two versions of me, the daughter who argued and the woman they called a killer. They were wrong, but in a town like Redwood Falls, even a cleared name leaves residue. A pause in conversation, a glance that lingers half a second too long. Innocence doesn't restore what suspicion takes, it just lets you stay. And sometimes